right, everybody. Welcome to the Nick Biddle Life and Leadership Podcast. I'm Nick Biddle, your host. We are here for the second week in a row with Patrick McGowan. And this episode, Patrick actually puts me in the hot seat. The tables have turned. So stay tuned as we will continue our conversations around communication, but we're going to talk about hard conversations and how those blend in to the four mindsets.
So I'm going to flip this just a little bit. I'm going to ask you a couple questions about tough conversations.
Okay.
What is it? Let me think of what my question is. How do you approach when you workshop this with folks? What is your format or your framework for introducing tough conversations, and then what are one or two ways you help them to navigate, or how do you kind of teach this to your audiences? That's really the main thing. How do you teach tough conversations to your audience?
So what are the techniques I teach, or how do I frame it up?
How do you frame it up?
Well, usually with a question. I'll just ask you how many are good at having a hard conversation. And I usually got to explain what a hard conversation is. And there's usually a lot, and it goes back to your point earlier that we just talked about, but there's usually a lot more people that are willing to have a hard conversation than are good at having a hard conversation. Because some of the individuals, especially the old school guys that are my age or older, they think the purpose of a hard conversation is to tell that person what I think. Get it off my chest. I got to take this load and put it on them. Whether I think they're a piece of crap, or I think they're an idiot, or a waste of space, or this is wrong and that's wrong, they feel like the goal of the conversation is to take this load and put it on them. And so we have a little bit of conversation around that. And then I talk about, the purpose of constructive criticism or hard conversations is to not get rid of your load, but to get them to change, get the other person to want to change behavior. We're looking for a change of heart, not change of responsibility. I want to position that hard conversation in a way that makes the other person, like you said, leave the meeting and figure out why do you keep telling the same story? What's deep down in there that we need to change or give a chiropractic adjustment in order to change behavior? Because ultimately that's what we're driving, right?
Yep. So tough conversation. Yeah, no, it reminds me of two things. One is a quote. The other one is the observation I'm making is a tough conversation is more centered around the questions you ask rather than the statements you make.
That's good. Yeah, I don't say it that way, but that's good.
Because questions engage people in a different way, especially when they're non-accusatory questions. You don't ask, in a tough conversation, do you ever ask, why the hell are you doing it that way?
Yeah, we do that all the time. And
right.
And that's when I teach them, help me understand,
right.
But yeah.
Yes. Why are you being so stupid? Is not how we lead with questions.
That engages people on a different level.
That's right. If you want them to put up walls of resistance and just start stacking bricks against listening to you, just keep asking why questions. But going back, Nick, I hear that a tough conversation, to your point, is people aren't afraid to unload on people, and they call that a tough conversation. The tougher conversation is to lead with questions in order to change behavior, to lead with questions rather than with statements, in order to mobilize the individual you're speaking to want to change their behavior and do a better job. And in that, the want is the heart aspect. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah. I think transformation goes from head to heart to hands. Like that's the process, right? And I think as leaders, too often we go in and immediately ask why. Why are your hands doing this? Why are your actions like this? And you got to get their buy-in first. You've got to get them thinking about what's really happening here, so that then they're convicted about their performance, their behavior, their attitude, whatever it is, and then ultimately then the change happens as a result of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think the other part of tough conversations that's important that I'm thinking of too is, as a leader, what can you learn in the process? Are you coming with a learning framework rather than a I'm the boss, do it my way framework? Do you kind of bring that piece into it as well, Nick, or is that just me making stuff up?
No. This is exactly. I think you're saying it better than I say it. I think my clients
I doubt that.
They're going to stop asking me to come in and teach us. They're just going to have you. But yeah, what can I learn? I mean, for me, it's all about collecting the facts, and so when we think about the techniques that I teach, one of them is help me understand instead of what the hell. And I actually had a guy, I've got my foreman's inner circle. We meet every month for 45 minutes, and I teach them one idea. They go out, test drive it for 30 days. We come back, talk about it, make some course corrections, what worked, what didn't work. Then I teach them another idea. Well, this month we were talking about expectations, but last month we talked about implementing help me understand. And I had an individual, because I said, instead of what the hell, which creates conflict and casts judgment, help me understand, says the same thing, but it's to collect the facts. And I asked the group, okay, who used it? And this guy's like, well, I used it, it didn't work. I said, well, what did you do? He said, well, I said, help me understand what the hell's the matter with you. And and I said, okay, well, we're halfway there. We're halfway there. And so, and I asked the question, I said, how often do you go into a situation, some type of conflict, whether it's somebody that you lead or somebody you answer to or a client or coworker, whoever, and you think you have all the facts. And so you make a judgment, you tell somebody they're an idiot or they're doing it wrong or they're not doing what you told them to do or they've failed, whatever it is. And then we find out later, oh, I didn't have all the information. And I said, now, if we care about our influence, now we have to go back and apologize for making that judgment without having all the facts. And I said, there's nothing in this world I hate more than having to go back and apologize for bad behavior. And I have to do it a lot, but I hate it. And so that is the temper for me that's probably the wrong word, but that's why I will take a little more time up front, control my breathing, control my emotions up front to collect a few more facts up front, which is really, what can I learn? Help me understand why you're doing it this way. Help me understand why you've already started. Help me understand why you're not showing up. What else can you teach me? Because once I have all the facts, now we can make a judgment. And I always say, I'm not against conflict. If we need to dance, let's dance. That's okay.
Right.
But I at least want to have the information up front. And it's really, what can I learn? And they always say, go into a conversation not with what you can prove or teach, but what can you learn? Go in there with an inquiring mind.
Yeah. And we talked about, too, the other three words that are magic. Tell me more.
Tell me more. Yeah. Tell me more.
Right. You and I realized when I was visiting Corn that one time, the four most disappointing words were no breakfast after 10:30.
Yeah.
That's
right. I still don't.
I don't understand. Help me understand why the hell you don't have breakfast after 10:30.
Right. They say they have to turn their grill down or it's a different temperature. How does Denny's get away with it? I just don't buy it. Don't pass the smell test, because I cook breakfast, I cook lunch, and I do it on the same temperature. But whatever. What do I know? What do I know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, the second thing to this, though, too, that I think is really important for leaders in particular, it's not just that we ask questions, but we figure out the right questions to ask. And this has so many different implications in that, because the type of questions we ask will result in a specific type of response. And so we kind of got to take a page out of you know, a lawyer cross-examining a witness, in that where was I going with this? You don't want to lead not cross-exam, but you don't want to lead the witness to give you the answers you're looking for. You as a leader need to have the competence and the credibility to sort of dance with the answers you're given. And that may create some internal conflict, as you talk about, Nick, you know, personally. I know that there are times when I get triggered based off of answers that I receive. And and there's always going to be a place for creative or constructive conflict. So from tough conversation to constructive conflict is healthy. But the level of emotional intelligence that somebody needs to have to be able to navigate that pathway, if you would, is really essential. But it kind of goes back to, I mean, it really, all these things are coming together is, what is the purpose of this conversation?
Right.
What is my process for even a tough conversation, and what is the potential payoff? The potential payoff is the employee changes their behavior and becomes a star employee. What are you willing to do to have more star employees?
Yeah.
What if you created an electrical apprentice program designed around creating elite electricians? Not just apprentices rising through the ranks, but we are creating a team of elite electricians who can handle the most difficult problems that our community can throw at us.
Different purpose, right?
It's a different purpose. And that becomes a different conversation. And I, as a leader now, am providing that direction, order, and protection of my direct reports. I'm also learning from what they're learning. I'm willing to learn from my people in the process. And they may have come up with something better.
Right.
Because they're looking at it from a different perspective. They may still have done it wrong, but maybe there's a place in between then in that tough conversation and that constructive conflict that allows us to find a new, better solution. You know, it's not an either or, there's a third way forward where that person really feels valued in the process that you're you know, imagine the ideal situation. Number one, they feel incredibly valued. Number two, they change their behavior.
Right. Yes. I think somehow we've got to figure out. I think it's emotion is what throws us off course, right? And it's like too often we're focused on change, but it's like the first thing we've got to do is manage that emotion. We had a situation a couple weeks ago when there was an individual in this. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. There was an individual that was not showing a lot of respect in that moment. And I was one of the adults in the room, and it immediately became my job, self-appointed, to set the record straight. We're going to show respect. And in that moment, boy, I wanted to go in and just chew some tail and just really just let them know how it was going to be, and I'm the boss, and you need to respect, and this is how it's going to be. But I didn't, because I couldn't talk to him right then. And so about 20 minutes went by, and I practiced my box breathing, some oxygen into my brain. And I thought, okay, what's the purpose? And it's like, I want this person to want to change. And how do I approach this with the end in mind? And it's like, this person needs to know that I care. For them to know that I care, they also need to know that I see more in them than maybe they see in themselves, and I believe in them. And that helped me kind of reverse engineer that conversation, which would not have been pretty had I jumped into it right away. Not that I can't be firm, not that I can't give solid direction, but it was all about taking the emotion out.
Yeah.
And that took that from a tough, conversation to constructive conflict, really.
Yeah. And I think the thing I admire about that too, Nick, is you didn't say it this way, so correct me if I'm hearing it wrong, but your process of breathing and everything else like that you do in those moments is you're really, and I think that this is important from a leadership standpoint, don't take everything personally. This is their issue. And when you take it personally, it's becoming your issue in the process. And so what you've learned how to do, and I'm only guessing there were times you made the opposite mistake 17 years ago. You may not have had the composure that you do today. But I think that this idea that we just don't take it personally, because oftentimes people in those situations are wanting you to own their disrespect of you.
Now, you're giving me way too much credit. I may have handled it right. I may have handled it right in this situation, but I might screw it up tomorrow. So it's not like I've fixed this 17 years ago. No, and why do we make it about ourselves?
But that's just it. Is we get into that tension, that conflict, the tough spaces, and people are throwing bags of whatever at us, and we just kind of we get trapped.
Yeah.
And we take it personally. When somebody's goofing off and not doing their job, or as Clint says, they're not picking up the bucket that's clearly over here and carrying it over there when they easily could. When my kids were little, it was just like I took from the movie Robots, see a need, fill a need.
Fill a need. Yeah.
See a need, fill a need. And even to this day, it's just like, this stuff has to get done by somebody. But, it's really, really hard not to take it personally when you've kept saying the same thing over and over and over again. So then it may not be the fact that we're saying the wrong thing, or that it's not that we're not addressing the issue, but I think when I look at what you do from a tough conversation standpoint, it's really about how do we approach this differently in order to get a different result. What is the definition of insanity?
Yeah.
Keep doing the same
thing over and over, expect a different result. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not going to change if you don't change.
I was in an interview years ago, and we asked somebody, a leader, what's your greatest leadership quality? And they said, I have the ability to disagree without emotion. And we have a society that fails at that miserably. We bring emotion to everything we do. But it's like, can we disagree without emotion, which is required to not take it personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the litmus test. Otherwise, we make everything about us. Maybe it's our ego.
Yep.
Maybe it's our insecurities, our lack of humility. But it's disagree without emotion.
Yeah. This has been a really great conversation on tough conversations, Nick. The other area,
one of the things I do, so I'm kind of a big deal. So
you're kind of a big deal when it comes to tough conversations.
That's right.
And you really like having them. You got some tools in the toolbox.
That's right.
So you don't chew somebody's tail in the process. No tail chewing. That's your new slogan. Nick
Boy,
Biddle,
I'm not perfect at it. That's for sure.
Leadership trainer, no tail chewing. Promises, or as Mary Poppins said, that's a pie crust promise.
That's
easily
right.
made, easily broken.
Yes, easily broken is right.
Yeah. But the other area that I've been privileged to listen to you on are the 4 mindsets. And it's something that you come to frequently, because I think a lot of your communications training, the things that you bring into your workshops around how to be good with people, and ultimately being good with people is about being able to talk with them, share with them, listen to them. And so one of the areas that I'm curious about is, how would you sort of intersect or kind of pull the joinery together around having a conversation with a struggler versus having a tough conversation with a thinker, having a tough conversation with a doer versus having a tough conversation with an achiever. How would a leader, understanding the four mindsets, do a better job of having the right kind of tough conversation with that individual?
Yeah, and that's good. Yeah, so I don't know that I've ever talked about this before, but yeah, let's jump into it. Because yeah, those four mindsets, which I originally learned from Mark LeBlanc, but like I've told Mark, I've been doing it long enough. I'm just about ready to start taking credit for it as my own, my own material. But not only do we need to recognize what mindset someone is in, struggler, thinker, doer, or achiever. We also need to be aware of where we're going to put somebody or throw somebody as a result of this conversation. Let's start with achiever. An achiever is anybody trying to accomplish something great. This is a new hire. This is a design build client. This is sometimes your boss. Somebody that's really trying to, maybe they're trying to build a career or create a project. They go beyond what they're used to doing. And when I share this, I always have a picture of somebody climbing a mountain. That is an achiever. They're trying to do the impossible. What the achiever wants is teamwork. They want somebody to help them. They want somebody to grab them by the hand and say, let's figure this out together. Sometimes we can't always do that. An apprentice that's an achiever, they want to be part of a team. Sometimes they got to dig a hole by themselves, right? What the achiever needs is a resource. And so, but if you're having a conversation with an achiever and they think they're doing great, because, I mean, there's often times we have to sit down and have a hard conversation with someone who thinks they are the absolute best at what they do. I am fantastic. I am the best employee. And it's like, I'm so sorry, no one's ever been honest with you. Because you are not. You are absolutely not. And so you're going to throw that achiever in the middle of that conversation into a struggler immediately, right? And so I think that's why I think it's so important. Because ultimately, I think we want, I don't want to say we always want these individuals to come back to achiever mindset. We really just want them to get through this mindset. But Mark will always tell you that a struggler is just an achiever in a moment of struggle. It's a temporary moment of struggle. And so when I'm sitting down having a hard conversation with someone who's an achiever mindset, they want to build a successful career, but I got to tell them they suck at something. How we do that matters. And so you got to get their buy-in. What an achiever wants is teamwork, but what they need is a resource. They need somebody that's going to help them get from A, B, or C. And so if I've got to tell them, hey, you're not any good at this, then how I set it up is going to matter. So I'm going to ask for permission. It's like, hey, can we have a hard conversation? And they're going to say yes. And then I'm going to say something like, one of my jobs as your boss is to help you build the life or career you want. Is that what you want for yourself? They're going to say yes. And ultimately, now we're pulling on the same end of the rope, right? Not only that, but we've gotten some buy-in. When they say yes, they open up to it, the information. And then I wanted to say, I'm going to tell you some stuff that you're not going to like to hear. But if you can work through these few issues, man, you're going to come out of this better. And so I want to paint that picture to try to keep them in achiever mode, right? And then I'm going to give them the constructive criticism, and they're immediately going to fall into struggler mode. And a struggler wants a quick fix, right? And the quick fix might be they want to not have this conversation, or they want me to forget that they came in late, or that they made that mistake, or they want to pretend I don't have to fire them, even though this might make them better moving forward, right? They want me to overlook the failure. A struggler, you can throw a general contractor or a client into a moment of struggle when you hand them a change order. The quick fix they want is, I don't want the change order, let's make it up on the next one. And ultimately, you have to, I want to try to position that information in a way that helps them see the positive out of this. I want them to see the new perspective, because what the struggler needs is a new perspective. And so, I'm going to say, yeah, this is going to hurt right now, but ultimately this is going to make you better. Or this is how we learn. But I feel like most people don't pull each other out of those mindsets.
No. I appreciate the sort of the bookend on that. The question I have then is, previously we talked about having a purpose for the conversation. And so remembering, maybe even putting it on a 3x5 card and putting it in your wallet. And you know who your achievers are, you know who your strugglers are. So what is the purpose of this hard conversation for an achiever? Is to help them either find a resource or be their own resource, or be that resource for them in some fashion to the extent that you can be. For the struggler, the purpose is to help them have a new perspective, a perspective of possibility is how I might put it.
Yeah. No, that's
well,
really
if that's
good.
So if I'm now, so I'm just looking at this as a communication strategy, but it's also a communication strategy is another way of looking at having a leadership strategy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Because communications, it's all about our influence, right?
Yep. And our ability to affect change and get things done.
Yeah.
Okay, that was while you were, we'll go through the thinker and the doer. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I started to see the pattern. I just started to see the pattern, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna connect dots.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's what I do.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And the thinker is somebody who can't choose between options A, B, or C. And sometimes you got to have a hard conversation with them, and that hard conversation is getting them to make a decision. Because if they don't, we're behind schedule. It's going to become a change order if we don't fix it. The story I always tell is Cruz picking out a candy bar. That's a hard conversation. And when we lead with our emotion, I want to go in there and get your candy bar and get out of here, or you get nothing. I want to draw a hard line in the sand, make it about me. But the thinker wants to make a decision. Deep down in dark places they don't talk about, they want to decide. And but what they need is more information. And the thinker, we can't take it away from them. You said earlier,
I was just going this.
Yeah, how do we not make this about us? You said that earlier. Yep. That's the thinker. Our ego, our pride comes in and says, "Man, I'm pretty smart. Let me just tell you what to do. I know the answer here. I make it about me." Humility is all about going in and saying, what can I learn? Where is the real struggle here? And also that's then leading that person to the ultimate solution and making it their idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hard conversation we have to have is helping somebody understand this isn't the right career for them. That's a hard conversation. It looks like you're firing them. You are. But ultimately, I want them to know this isn't what God put you on earth to do. I think it's Mark Twain, 2 most important days in a person's life. Number 1's the day you're born. If that don't happen, it really takes the pressure off. But number 2 most important day in a person's life is the day they find out why.
Yeah.
And we've got some individuals, they haven't found it yet. This was a job. It's not a career for them. Never will be. And doesn't mean they got to leave the construction industry, but maybe they should never carry tools again. Maybe they need to go to the office. Maybe they need to learn something else. Maybe they need to sell insurance to our industry. It's not a less than. It's just this isn't it. And I really want that thinker in that moment. If I can get them to see that and make that decision, even though at the end of this conversation you're going to turn in your hard hat and your tools. I mean, man, that's a win. Too often we let our emotions and our ego and we fire somebody because you're a piece of crap and you're worthless and you shouldn't be in here. And man, all we do is tear somebody down.
Right.
And maybe not. Maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a better way.
Well,
so,
and I think it's.
Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking too. It's the question that Mark always asks us. The hardest question to answer is, what do you want? The second hardest is, what are you willing to do to get it?
Yeah.
And I think you've had guys on the show, on the podcast, or you've mentioned them where it's like, I don't love string and wire all day.
Yeah.
But I sure love what it gives me as a result.
Yeah. And that's the new perspective.
Yep.
Because when you talk to somebody about something they don't want to do, the quick fix they want is to not have to do it. The new perspective they need to see is, this career is just a vehicle to help me get what I want in life. And sometimes, like Elise said, sometimes we got to do the things we don't like to do so we get to do the things we love to do, which is, for some of us, it's eat and have electricity and be able to afford to go on a trip and buy clothes for our kids. And
internal plumbing. Oh my gosh.
And that's okay. It's not everything in life has to be a party. That's okay.
Right.
And that comes back to doing hard things. You've heard how Cruz and I have had so many conversations about doing hard things. And I was talking to somebody yesterday on a call, and I said, we got to choose our hard. It's all hard. Building a career is hard, but so is being broke. So if you're going to do a hard, which one do you want to do? And it's just about choosing the hard, but that's also that new perspective. And I think mastering the mindsets, and I don't think I've done it, and I teach it every week, but it's realizing that you might, in a single conversation, have one individual go through all four of these mindsets. And every mindset wants one thing, needs something else. I think where we mess up is when we focus on what we want and what we need in that moment. And ultimately, it comes back to them. And then there's the doer. The doer is probably, it may not be as easy to see as the struggler, but I would say it's the most consequential mindset to deal with. Because a doer is wrapped in emotion. A doer is anybody with their head on fire. They got the most important thing in the world, and it's your job to fix it. And the doer wants action. They want you to jump up and fix their problem right now. And sometimes we've got the tough conversation there, and I'm actually talking about it on the leadership drip this month. But it takes courage to tell the doer no. And the leadership drip's all about how great leaders lead with courage. And it takes courage to stand up for your people or to stop work when there's a safety issue, because you're confronting a doer in that moment. The doer wants action. They want you to fix their problem. Sometimes you can't fix their problem. What the doer needs is a sense of urgency. We forget that. We put way too much stock in what we deliver. Not near enough in a sense of urgency we bring. You let somebody know they're important, they will give you a lot of grace on what you deliver. Have you seen that in your world?
Yep. Yeah. It's the old Zig Ziglar quote. I came to mind. I grew up listening to Zig Ziglar because my dad was in sales, and
you're old.
There was a Zig, right? And I'm old, so I'm right up. You're not old unless you know how to use a rotary dial phone.
That's true. That's true.
There are generational differences. But the Zig Ziglar, you can get anything you want if you help more. How does it go? If you can help more people achieve what they want. You can achieve anything you want if you help enough people to achieve what they want.
Yeah.
And so there is sort of a through line in I might kind of hypothesize here just a little bit, or kind of guess my way through the four mindsets, tough conversations in this this Zig Ziglar quote, and that is, really understanding what the individual wants, and in some ways even assume the best, and then you as a leader providing that direction, that order, that protection, that expertise, in a way that doesn't take away their power, but actually maybe even enhances it. Because when you're asking somebody to grow, you're asking them to take more accountability, more responsibility, and ultimately just become a better person in the process. I mean, it's one of the things I've really enjoyed about listening. I want to say it's not Clint. Who's your fire chief?
Brett Russell.
Brett, and how he wasn't just developing leaders, he was really developing better humans. It wasn't just what he could achieve at the fire station. It was what how these young men and women were taking those lessons back home, being better spouses, being better parents as well. And you and I were talking earlier about Ted Lasso, and that's it's season 1 where he actually says, I'm just as interested in winning games as I am in these young men becoming better men.
Yeah.
And that's a good.
Brett Russell believes that. I mean, that's not lip service.
Yep.
I mean, he
Yep.
lives. That's. But I think as leaders, that's what we've got to be concerned for that person. If it's only productivity, if it's productivity over people, that's going to be short-lived. That'll work for a little while.
Yep.
You get enough individuals on your team that need the paycheck, that are stressed out. You can drive productivity, but ultimately, if it's got to be people. Got to be people over productivity. It's got to be people over profit. The productivity and the profit is the result of building up your people. And if we can help our people, our leaders, be better communicators, be better leaders, have a greater degree of influence with those they serve, be better at hard conversations, they become better moms and dads. They become better spouses. They become better grandmas and grandpas. And I got to tell you, when I was on a bathroom break just a minute ago about an individual who said, "Hey, I just watched my wife use one of your techniques with our 6-year-old grandchild." I don't know if it worked or not, but this is people. It's just people. It's just people. We're all in the people business. Some of us do it in the electrical world. Some of us do it in the healthcare world. Some of us do it in the business world, but we're all in the people business.
Yep. It's all about being able to create and empower the more human connection. Mark, our friend Mark LeBlanc, likes to say the magic happens when people experience you. I mean, he says that to the people he's coaching, to encourage them to get out there and have conversations. And I've kind of taken that one. I've kind of gone a little deeper with that. There's magic that happens through the conversations we have and the connections we make, and it is ultimately about creating more human connection and empowering more human connection. We're all starving for it.
Yeah.
Loneliness is at an all-time high in this country, and for a lot of reasons. But our job as leaders is to create that connection. So if I look at this as a overriding purpose over everything that we've been talking about, I like thinking about this in terms of how am I going to connect with this person and create a connection where this person can thrive and I can thrive in the process.
Yeah, win-win, right?
It's a win-win at that point. That can survive, if we're really focused in through our communication, through our leadership, through our sense making, our being able to relate to people, our understanding of the different mindsets. When we start putting this sort of this platform together on which we stand for our leadership, this foundation, the tough conversations actually get easier. And not only are they easier, but they're less frequent. Because when we begin to really invest in ourselves, as you always talk about, Nick, as a leader, you need to be investing in yourself. When you invest in yourself and you invest in your people, in this people development side, there will be weeks where you don't have to look at the productivity numbers because stuff's getting done. Right? And things just start flowing.
Yep.
And
right.
You get in a zone as a team. So I think I might be a little Pollyannish about that, a little rose-tinted glasses. But I've seen it. I know it's possible. And it really just takes that commitment. And like you said, there's a lot of heart we got to bring into these relationships with the people that we get to work with every day. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, and it rises and falls with leadership. I mean, if we're not performing, if we are not connecting, it is our fault. Make no mistake. It is our fault. You are the leader. You are responsible. And it's hoping and I'm a huge fan of hope. I'm a huge fan of prayer. But that is not an effective strategy for being a better leader. You've got to change. It's not them. You don't need a better team. You need to be a better leader. Now, are there wrong people on our team sometimes? Absolutely. There can be a wrong person on the bus. There can be the wrong person in the wrong seat on the bus. But ultimately, you're the leader. It's your call.
Yep. Yeah.
I like it.
Oh, this has been great.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on with me. And I think, like you said earlier, we beat this horse to death. So I think we'll tie a ribbon around it and see what happens. But I appreciate what you do, and for more information about Patrick McGowan and how he can work with your leaders and your team and guys, you will not regret bringing him out. Connect with him on, is it punchin.com?
Punchin.io.
Punchin.io.
Yeah, punchn.io, or just email me, patrick@punchin, punchn.io.
And I'm sure you will put all that in the show notes.
I will put that in the show notes.
There you go.
along with editing anything that I found less than representative of me. all the really good stuff. I'll make sure all the really good smart comments are coming from you, and I'll just kind of.
It's going to be a pretty short.
Turn my volume
podcast
down.
It's coming from me.
But you're a big deal, Nick.
You're a big deal. I hear that a lot. All right, guys. That's all we got for you this time. Till next time, take care.